Well, it has begun. The great Xbox shakeup has begun. Microsoft closes some of the most iconic studios at Bethesda Studios. And it begs the question, what's next for Xbox and what's next for gaming? Now, as is usual with these news stories, we are seeing I'm seeing a lot of emotional reaction, and I would even say overreaction to this. A lot of people really taking this personal. A lot of people saying, this is it. This is the end. How do you trust Microsoft ever again? And I don't think this has anything to do with trust. I think this is strictly a business move. I also want to go through and explain, because it seems like there's been a lot of layoffs over the last 12 months, and there absolutely has. And let's talk about why. Why is that a thing? Is it the case that Xbox is just trying to screw people, that Microsoft is acting evil, that they're betraying our trust? I don't think that it is. I think that there's an emotional attachment in gaming, a unique emotional attachment. I think that's what makes gaming so powerful. I think that's what makes gaming so strong and so interesting. There's an emotional attachment in games to game studios, to IPs that does not exist in any other medium. Think about it. If, I don't know, let's take a movie. If some movie comes out, I don't want to name any specifically, and it has a super huge reaction, a lot of excitement and hype around it. Everybody loves it, your favorite movie, and they never make a sequel to it, no one's mad. You do that in gaming? The questions, why not? What are you doing here? Why is there no sequel to this? It's almost assumed that if a game does well, that you're going to get a sequel. I mean, granted, that's assumed in movies as well, but let's take one of my favorite movies of all time. Two of my favorite movies, Tombstone, no sequel. Gladiator, also no sequel. That doesn't take away from the greatness of those movies. And there's no emotional connection. Again, I'm just illustrating the emotional connection here. So when news like this comes out, especially if you're on the internet, there is going to be emotional reactions. And I'm going to be honest, there's emotional reactions from people that should not have the emotional reactions. And these are journalists. And these are people who are supposed to be responsible and not objective. I don't think anyone is objective, but at least open and honest about your positions and views. And I think for a lot of them, they are, but some are. I think one of the most objective ones on reporting here is Tom Warren. I think he's been consistently even-handed in just reporting what's happening and what's going on with Xbox and Microsoft. I can't say that for everyone else. I think that especially with the news that Microsoft and Xbox were going to bring games over to PlayStation, that's where you really saw the best rise to the top and the emotional spiral down to the bottom. And you're seeing it again here with this. So let's go over the news story. We're going to read this full news story. This is from Tom Warren over at The Verge, who I think has the best coverage on it. And then I want to take a look at Windows Central, because Windows Central has changed some of their headlines. And I wish I could have screenshotted it. I'm sure someone out there did screenshot it. Their reaction, very emotional, very unprofessional, very emotional. And we're gonna go through that and read it too. But here's The Verge. Microsoft shuts down Bethesda Studios behind Redfall and Hi-Fi Rush. Xbox Game Studios head Matt Booty sent out an email to staff announcing the complete shutdown of Arkane Austin, Tango Gameworks, and more. If you remember, Arkane Austin is Redfall and the Redfall project. That's no surprise to me that got readjusted here inside the Xbox library. Also, none of this is really a surprise to me. When the mergers happened initially between Activision Blizzard and Bethesda, you knew that consolidation was an inevitability. That's just what happens. Do all these studios make sense for Xbox? Do they make sense inside of the Xbox studio infrastructure? Where can we cut some fat, maybe? This is no disrespect to any studios that went under. I'm not saying that they're not valuable and they didn't do a good job. I'm just saying this is how a company looks at when they bring on when they acquire new entities. Where does this fit in our overall portfolio, our overall library? Did we just create duplicates here? Is there things that other teams can do, et cetera, et cetera? In the email the staff sent this morning, Xbox head of Xbox Game Studios Matt Booty announced the closure of several game studios, including Redfall developer Arkane Austin, Hi-Fi Rush developer Tango Gameworks, Alpha Dog Games, and more. According to the email, as first reported by IGN, great job IGN, Booty wrote the reason for the closures was due to, quote, reprioritization of titles and resources. That's exactly what I just said. He just said it in a better way. Whenever there's a merger, whenever there's an acquisition, you take a look at everything company-wide and you look at where things make more sense. Are we wasting resources? Are we doubling up on resources? What is our new priorities? Are we reprioritizing, et cetera, et cetera? It looks like that's exactly what this was. Some staff at the affected studios will be relocated, while other studios will completely shut down. Redfall developer Arkane, quote, will close with some members of the team joining other studios to work on projects across Bethesda, says Booty. Redfall's previous update will be its last as Microsoft is ending all development on that game. Is that a surprise due to the launch of Redfall, due to what happened? Perhaps Redfall, when they look at it, just doesn't make sense anymore in a Microsoft library for Game Pass. You know, maybe there was plans to, I'm sure they looked at, hey, do we support this? Is this our No Man's Sky moment? Is this our Sea of Thieves moment where we support this constantly to get it up to where we think it could be? Maybe there's not a place. Maybe this doesn't fill a genre for us that we think needs. It looks like they're just getting rid of Redfall altogether. Servers will remain online for players to enjoy, and we will provide make good offers to players who purchase the Hero DLC. So no matter what you purchase, you're getting that. Servers will remain online for players to enjoy, but further progress and development of the game is over. Here's the tweet from Arkane Studios. Sign up to receive details on how to receive this credit. Today it was announced that Arkane Austin will close and development will no longer continue on Redfall. To everyone that has supported the work from Austin Studio over the years, thank you. Thank you for spending time in our worlds and making them your own. Arkane Lion will continue their focus on immersive experiences where they are hard at work for their upcoming project. Redfall players who purchase the Hero Pass as part of the Premium Biteback Edition or the Premium Biteback upgrade will be eligible to receive the value of the upgrade. While there will be no further updates, Redfall servers will remain online for players to enjoy. So that's Arkane Studios just clarifying what is happening there. No questions for me so far. This makes complete sense. Part of Arkane will continue to work on projects that they're working on, but Redfall is no longer going to be developed. Again, not surprised given the release and the reception of Redfall, the state of the game. It just didn't work out with Redfall. Hi-Fi Rush developer Tango Gameworks is closing, and it doesn't appear that any members of the team will join other Bethesda studios. Quote, Hi-Fi Rush will continue to be available to players on the platforms it is today, says Booty. Hi-Fi Rush only just debuted on PS5 recently after receiving multiple accolades, award nominations, and critical praise. Aaron Greenberg, vice president of Xbox Games Marketing, wrote on X that Hi-Fi Rush was a breakout hit for us on all key measurements and expectations. And I would say this one is the one that people are getting most emotional about. And it does make sense. I don't think that the points are irrelevant. A lot of players saying, hey, look, if you had all this success, why is Tango Gameworks going away? Also, Tango Gameworks is a Japanese studio here. What are you doing? Here's what Tango Gameworks had to say. Today it was announced that Tango Gameworks will close. Thank you to everyone that explored the worlds we created. Hi-Fi Rush, along with Tango's previous titles, will remain available and playable everywhere they are today. So not going anywhere. Now, a lot of people, I think I'm seeing online, multiple posts, multiple people I'm seeing in comment section. Great, Hi-Fi Rush. Why are we not getting a sequel? Doesn't mean that you won't get a sequel for Hi-Fi Rush. Xbox still owns the IP. Hi-Fi Rush is still a thing. In fact, I would be willing to bet that we absolutely get a sequel for Hi-Fi Rush. Again, when you're looking at game studios, you're looking at, is this a studio that we need? Is this a studio that we should keep open? If yes, why? If no, why not? And it looks like in that analysis, they decided that Tango Gameworks doesn't fit for them. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, wait a minute. If you're trying to get into Japan, this doesn't make sense. This, was a foot in the door, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't disagree with that. I think that that's correct. So I'm curious at what their reasoning was here. We don't know is the fact. Now, do I think that this puts them back with their Japanese audience and the efforts that they're making in Japan? 100% no. Like, this is a typical business move. Sony's going to be making similar moves over time. Nintendo is going to be making similar moves and has made similar moves and would make similar moves if they had acquisitions as well, or when they have acquisitions, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think this affects that. In fact, Xbox has made huge inroads with publishers like Square Enix, and I don't think that that's ending anytime soon. So I think that Xbox is focused on Japan and will continue to work there. Again, this is strictly a business decision. I don't mean to sound cold. Obviously, you know, it sucks for studios to close, but this isn't idiotic, I don't think, and I don't think that it's done with any ill intent. This literally is inevitable. The same thing is going to happen at Activision Blizzard over time as they take a look and see all the studios that are there, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. Again, to go back to Matt Booty's statement up here, where did he say it? Reprioritization of titles and resources. That's what the purpose of this is here. So let's continue. Alpha Dog Games is the third studio closure today. The developers of the mobile Mighty Doom game, Mighty Doom, will be sunset on August 7th, and we will be turning off the ability for players to make any purchases in the game. Microsoft is also moving the team at Roundhouse Studios into ZeniMax Online Studios to work more closely on The Elder Scrolls Online. Booty admits these changes will be disruptive to Bethesda as a whole. Here's what he said. Remember, this is an email, an internal email sent to the team. These changes are not a reflection of the creativity and skill of the talented individuals at these teams or the risks they took to try new things. I acknowledge that these changes are also disruptive to the various support teams across ZeniMax and Bethesda that bring our games to market. We are making these tough decisions to create a capacity to increase investment in other parts of our portfolio and focus on our priority games. It seems in the emotional reaction from players, it seems that they've not read into this. They give you the reasonings right here. Then they're not going to talk about these reasonings. I think maybe we may see some of this discussed, and when they're not talking about like, hey, here's how we did this. Rather, they'll talk about their focus at the upcoming Xbox presentation that's going to happen here next month. But let me repeat that sentence. We are making these tough decisions to create capacity to increase investment in other parts of our portfolio and focus on our priority games. So again, where reprioritization is the key here for Xbox. And when you acquire a behemoth like Bethesda and all the studios that come with it, you're looking at what makes sense for our portfolio, what makes sense in studios as far as development. Are we doubling up? Yes or no? Do we keep these? Do we not? How can we be as effective and as efficient as possible? Now, in fairness, they may be wrong. Like, I'm not sitting here acting like Xbox is perfect or that any business is perfect when making these decisions. Absolutely not. They may be wrong here. What I am doing is trying to bring reason and logic to, and Microsoft has these, to the emotional hot takes that are happening right now everywhere. There's reason to this. Gaming is a business. Gaming, in order to succeed, has to make money. And there's an argument, well, wait a minute. Xbox is owned by Microsoft. Microsoft is one of the world's richest companies, blah, blah, blah. Not blah, blah, blah. We will address that argument here in a moment. Let's get through the rest of this, though. Bethesda remains one of the key pillars of Xbox with a strong portfolio of amazing games and thriving communities. As we look to the future, remember, this is Matt Booty talking here in an email. As we look to the future, there is an impressive lineup of games on the horizon. In 2024 alone, we have Starfield Shattered Space, Fallout 76 Skyline Valley, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and The Elder Scrolls Online's Golden Road. As we align our plans and resources to best set ourselves up for success in this complex, changing industry, our teams across Arkane Lion, Bethesda Game Studios, id Software, Machine Games, ZeniMax Online Studios, and Bethesda Publishing and corporate teams will be well positioned to build new IP, explore new concepts, and expand our existing franchises. Now this article ends, and we'll talk about this in a minute. Earlier this year, Microsoft laid off 1,900 employees across Xbox Game Studios and the recently acquired Activision Blizzard. Again, like I said, that always happens with acquisitions. It is not exactly known how many employees are affected by today's closures, which add to what has been an almost continuing cadence of layoffs and closures within the video game industry for the last 18 months. So the last 18 months, I mean, across no matter where you're at, what studio you're at, there has been layoffs and closures. And we're going to talk about why in a moment. But first, I do want to highlight some of the emotional reaction, again, from people who I think should not have emotional reactions. And granted, that's my judgment for sure. You can disagree with it if you want. In fact, if you do disagree with it, let me know in the comments below. But let's start with Windows Central. This is Samuel Tolbert. Now, Windows Central goes through the article, and I think they do a pretty good job with the article. What I like is they show the whole email here. And they give everyone's, all the reasonings there. But let's come down from Samuel Tolbert to this last paragraph here. Now, this has changed, and I wish I would have screenshotted it, and I didn't. Someone out there somewhere probably did, though, because when this article first dropped, it said analysis, FU Microsoft, spelled out, FUCK, FU Microsoft. That's what it said as analysis. And because this was a work in progress when it was first, people, they zoomed to get out this as quickly as possible. FU Microsoft, that's the analysis from Samuel Tolbert. He's since changed it, obviously, because that would be inappropriate. Why put it there in the first place? Again, frustration and emotion and emotional attachment. Let's read his analysis here. There aren't words to describe how idiotic, short-sighted, and downright grim the move is. Well, you just used those words. So, and sorry, I'll be a little bit snarky here because I think that is this an editorial? It's under news. This should not be news. I mean, the rest of this should be news. Once you get to this analysis, this should be a separate article for editorial. Anyways, closing these teams signifies a death of creativity. No, it doesn't. How do you figure? So Xbox going to stop creating? All it signifies is that those studios are closing down and things are being realigned. That's what it signifies. It comes at a time when Microsoft has control of massive major gaming franchise that are doing well. Fallout has seen a huge resurgence on the back of the Prime TV series. So why is ZeniMax seeing layoffs? If any Xbox ZeniMax employees would like to chat, I can be rich at the signal number in my Twitter bio. It'll be interesting to see what he finds out there. I just think this analysis is foolish. And I think, unfortunately, Sam Tolbert here is a freelance writer. Which I'm sure he's very talented. I don't know if I've read many of his articles. I'm sure I have over the time. I'm sure he's a great writer, et cetera, et cetera. Don't say anything bad about him. I mean, don't, send him hate or anything like that. He's a freelance writer covering gaming news, previews, reviews, interviews, and different aspects of the gaming industry, specifically focusing on Xbox and PC. Absolutely. Gaming on Windows Central. You can find him on Twitter. 100%. I wonder, let's see what his reaction has been on Twitter. Shall we hear real quick? Oh, he's got a cool cat there. Yeah, not a whole 7 hours ago. Oh, there it is. And here it is. F all the way off Microsoft. That was his analysis, by the way. That's what it was. F all the way off Microsoft. That was his analysis on that. That's what the heading was, which is funny. If any Xbox employees want to talk, let's see what people replied here. This is utterly baffling. This is wild, bro. Am I dreaming? My nude's in profile. That's how you know you've made it. When Lacey shows up in your profile. And this is kind of the emotional reaction here that I'm talking about. We had another from Jez Gordon, who I think is usually pretty solid. Granted, this may be the Xbox. In case you missed it, Xbox is cooked. Why trust Microsoft at this point? I replied down here, I'm confused on the trust issue. Was there something underhanded here? I may be missing something. Why can't we trust Microsoft or Xbox anymore? There was some replies to that. Basically, to summarize those replies, because they closed these studios that some of them were doing well. For instance, again, Tango Gameworks seems to be the one that people latch onto. For more pure Xbox over here, has Xbox an article, Xbox fans react angrily to the closure of Bethesda Gaming or Tango Gameworks. And this I think is the main one driving most of it. One of the most critically acclaimed games, Microsoft. Let's close down Tango Gameworks. I'm sure this was not an easy decision. Apparently making a very highly and successful and beloved AA hit game, Hi-Fi Rush is still not enough to be considered worth keeping. And I'm sure in the comments, this one's completely wild to me. Arkane Austin, I understand, but Tango, again, Tango, I think, seems to be the crux here. And I agree. I mean, seems like they did a good job, but I don't know what everything looks like business-wise on their backside. Absolutely deplorable. Well, of course, Microsoft Studio, this was the least deserving of the closure. I don't disagree with that. Let's kill a fresh, new, well-received IP. So you're not killing the IP. The IP still exists. But anyways, you can see like some very emotional reactions here. I don't blame fans for being reacted. I do blame people who are reporting the news for being so emotional. I know you can have your own personal opinion, and that's fine, but it makes sense to me why it would happen. This was inevitable. So let's start with a few questions here. In fact, let me come back to Verge. I think Verge was just reported. Verge did a pretty decent job here of just reporting the news and what happened. So we've seen a lot of these over the last 18 months. So why has the gaming industry why have they had so many layoffs in the last 18 months? I read a lot of analysis on this over the last 12 months. I'd say 6 months more on different reasons. Can we expect more? And the answer is yes, we can expect more. This is not the end. Not necessarily from Microsoft per se, but in the gaming industry as a whole. So the number one reason from analysts and from all the reading I've done is post-pandemic market correction here. During 2019, during COVID lockdowns, actually it wasn't 2019, was it 2020 that COVID lockdowns were? Time has flown. Anyways, during COVID-19, there was a huge surge in gaming, just a surge in gaming. Think about streaming. Then you had people staying home for months at a time. Then you had money coming in, extra money from the governments, all governments worldwide, people able to spend it on games and gaming. And so companies expanded rapidly. They were able to expand rapidly. As the world began to open back up, I think gaming has settled back into like a normal rate, and that growth just wasn't sustainable. The money's no longer coming in. People don't have that disposable income. Everything's readjusting. Look at the meta economics here, like worldwide economics. You have inflation. Things are tough. You have full-time jobs being lost, being replaced by part-time jobs just currently. And so it just prompts cutbacks overall. So I think that's the number one thing, at least from what I can read and tell in all the analysis done. That is a huge thing. This post-pandemic market correction, we're suffering from it now. Like just as meta economy goes. What is the other word for meta here that I'm looking? There's macroeconomic situation. I'm using meta. That's when you combine gaming and economics right there. That's just the macro reality that we're in now. Rising development costs is number two, why there's been so many layoffs. And everybody has admitted this. It's why both Sony and Microsoft have said this high end AAA gaming model that's all we focus on is no longer sustainable. It's too expensive. The cost of producing these games is, $500 million plus. And as you're doing that, when you're pushing the boundaries like that, the cost of using advanced technology, the cost of development and research in those advanced technology, you combine that with, you create higher player expectations with these types of games. It strained budgets, and it strains budgets, just marketing alone, because you have to make all your money back on the cost of those games, particularly, like I said, while macroeconomic conditions worldwide are not good. So rising development costs, I think, contribute. Post-pandemic markdown correction. Number one, rising development costs. I think we have a shift to live service models. That's definitely something that is a huge shift. Microsoft has a pretty good, decent portfolio of live service models. We've seen the success of Sea of Thieves now over on PlayStation 5. PlayStation is jumping into the live service model game. That's why they picked up Destiny. That's what they want to do. They need it. They see the value in a live service model. It's one of the reasons I think Xbox is set up to succeed, and why I think we're at the beginning of the Xbox domination generation. Because when you look at their portfolio, when you look at the moves they've made with Game Pass, with live service games, they're set up for this new world that we're in with gaming. They're set up for this for this change, this shift that we're seeing in gaming overall. Next up, we have, so shift to live service gaming models, I think is number 3 for cuts. So if you have a game that's not making you money or you don't think can do as well as a live service game, you're either moving development teams or you're cutting those development teams. It's just the reality. Market saturation and consumer shift. This is reason number 4 for me on why the gaming industry has had so many layoffs over the last 12 months. We just know it. Both Sony has said it. Xbox has said it. The console market is no longer growing. How do you grow it now is the question. When the console market is no longer growing, you've got to reprioritize. Matt Booty said it here in this email to everybody. This is about reprioritizing right here. So market saturation and market shift. There's more games to play ever before, vying for your attention. Sarah Bond said, we've got to figure out how to tap into the black hole of gaming where more gamers are playing the same 4 games all the time. And that's where they're spending more of their time. How do you shift from that? How do you break through that hold that these live service games have on people? There's a lot of things. The gaming industry is not all peaches and cream. Is it more successful? Yes, but there's also more challenges, I think, than ever before. It's why we're seeing this giant shift and this adjustment, this pivot in gaming. And it's why I'm excited for it, because I think this pivot will be good overall. And finally, I think the reason that there's been so many layoffs over the last 18 months is merger and acquisitions. There's been tons of acquisitions everywhere, tons of mergers, just in Xbox alone. And this Bethesda round of layoffs is primarily due to the merger and acquisition here, I think. So let's recap. What do I have? 5 reasons here? 5 reasons that there's been so many layoffs over the last 12 months. Market correction from COVID. Like, that's just number 1 reason. Development costs, number 2. 3, we're shifting to live service models. More companies are doing that. PlayStation themselves are jumping into that. Market saturation and consumer shift. There's more games to play now than ever before, and more players are playing the same 5 games than ever before. How do we address that shift? We've got to reprioritize. I think this is a part of that reprioritization, and as is many of the layoffs that we've seen over the last year. Mergers and acquisitions is the 5th reason that we've seen so many layoffs, and macroeconomic conditions. I think we can tap into that. But gaming companies are making more revenue than ever before despite these layoffs, X1. What are you talking about? This makes no sense. Microsoft is the most profitable company. It's not how it works, though. First of all, there's revenue versus profitability. Revenue, just because you have high revenue, doesn't necessarily equate to high profits due to the increased operational and development costs that we talked about, due to always having to push the line, always having to be better, always having to one-up yourself. That's difficult. That's difficult to do. Also, these developing businesses usually operate in silos where each silo has to be profitable on its own. If it's not, you've got to explain why. You've got to figure out and reprioritize, reorganize to see if you can make it profitable and if it's worth it. Rising development costs. Again, we talked about this before. The expense of creating high quality games is climbing. That's, again, macroeconomics affects everything, including gaming and game development. Excuse me. Including higher salaries for skilled workers. You have more extensive marketing campaigns. Again, we're talking about these AAA games, and we're also talking about the shift in gamer habits here. If you're trying to reach people that are in Call of Duty, for instance, and that's all they play, and you're like, hey, guys, check out this game. That's going to cost you a lot of money to do that. How do you solve? That's the $1 million question. How do you break through to them? Also, investment in technology that you can't ever. I mean, that's a huge cost for people, right? Companies are investing in new technologies and platforms. So while they may have record revenues, that revenue is not profits necessarily, as it's being put back into further investment in technology. If you want to have the largest generational leap in technology in a generation, that's going to cost money. That's going to cost you money. And then finally, offsetting losses. So profitable companies are offsetting unprofitable companies, or profitable developers offset unprofitable developers. Profitable companies need to make cuts to offset losses from unsuccessful projects, from unsuccessful divisions of the company. That's just how it works. Again, this is kind of business 101. Any business class, feel free to take. I wouldn't recommend. Just YouTube business 101. So overall, what do I think here? What are my final thoughts and analysis? I think there's a lot of emotional reaction here that I think It's just interesting that we don't treat any other medium like that. And I don't think that that's bad. I'm not saying that that's bad. I actually think that that's good. That shows that gaming connects with people because it enables you to experience firsthand being a character rather than passively watching that character. But I do think there's a lot of emotional reaction here that, again, it's reminiscent of the Xbox bringing games to PlayStation. You had people smashing their Xboxes. Guess what? It all ended up being nothing. Oh, and guess what? PlayStation's doing the same thing. Oh, and guess what? So is every other gaming company out there at the moment. This reminds me of that. I do think, are you ready for this statement? I do think this was actually a smart move for Xbox to release it now. You've got 1 month till your June 9th presentation. And by that time, this will be forgotten about. I think they've got some big plans for that. You come out, you announce your path forward, you announce the games that are releasing, the games that are being working on. Maybe you talk about some of your pivots here. And you had to rip this Band-Aid off and get it out of the way. I think that's why this is coming now, because in 1 month, remember, we don't even live in 4 to 8 hour news cycles anymore. We literally live in 12-hour news cycles. It's just the speed at which things happen with. So ripping off this Band-Aid now, and again, I don't mean to sound insensitive. That's not my intent at all. I'm just stating the facts here. Ripping this Band-Aid off now was probably deliberate so that you could get it out of the way for your presentation in June, which looks like it's going to be huge, and they have big plans for it. I'm excited to see what they have. So I think that's the thought process here. Would love to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. I could be right. I could be wrong. I'm not wrong about being overly emotional. I don't think it does anyone any good to be overly emotional. I think take a step back, take a deep breath, and see if you can figure it out. I think whenever you emotionally react, at least I know in my life, whenever I've reacted emotionally to something, I always come back to regret it. And we live in a day and age where everyone can react instantly over social media. So anyways, my name is X1 the Gamer. We cover news all the time right here, all things Xbox on this channel. Hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.